In the last 3 days, it's not only Bitcoin that's taken a pretty big hammering, it's also the altcoin market and Ethereum. Ethereum specifically is clinging on to dear life here on a macro support zone and the bull market support bands. We need to discuss all of these things. We'll discuss the Bitcoin charts, the Bitcoin macro, more importantly, the altcoin market. We'll discuss the weekly candle close that happened on Bitcoin. Pretty bad weekly candle close we've seen actually break below a pretty important weekly chart RSI level at 62, which we would have wanted to see hold. But at the end of the day, we are still in a bull market. I know a lot of people get overly pessimistic when we see corrections like this, but it has happened time and time again. At this point in time, the macro structures, which is what really matters, are intact. And in fact, this drop we've seen was pretty well expected. I mean, in the last few videos, I've been highlighting the risk that Bitcoin is in with the weekly candle close, the risk Bitcoin is in of a further correction. I know you can't really tell by these green chart titles, but it's been very clear to me that short-term weakness was developing, especially in yesterday's video, and the weekly candle close really nailed in that short-term weakness, and it's given us a pretty clear roadmap forward for the next couple of weeks, I think at least. So I'll look into all of this today. By the end of this video, you should know what is likely to happen next in the short term. You should know what the situation is fully in the macro, and you should be a little bit clearer on the situation for the altcoin market. Full clarity on that regard is quite hard to come by, but I'll do my best. A lot of people ask me what exchange I use as a trader. I use the Bitunix Exchange, and I don't have a contract with them. I haven't signed anything with them. I don't work for them. I advertise them on my own accord. With my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount permanently attached to your account, as well as up to 8,000 USDT in rewards just by signing up with my link down below. Why would you sign up? Well, it's global, it's non-KYC, it's never been hacked before, it's got all of the functions and pairs that you would expect for a major exchange. For that reason, I use it. And I implore you to consider using it as well. Sign up with my link to help out the channel, help out yourself. Cheers. I have to say, I was quite surprised to see in the polls that a lot of you guys are holding right now. Now, I posted a poll right here. How have you reacted to the crypto market in June? Some people buying, not many people selling, and most people kind of holding on to their assets. Now, that's a little bit surprising because I have come with a bit of a short-term, medium-term bearish sentiment in the last few weeks. Long-term sentiment, of course, has remained macro bullish. But generally speaking, when I come with that kind of sentiment in videos, it leads people to de-risk in the short term and buy back when the macro breakouts occur. That's not happening this time, which is a little bit interesting. Not necessarily a decision, it's just a personal decision. I do still see that Bitcoin is in macro position. We have the macro range in between these two yellow lines, which stem backwards from 2017 and 2021 alike. And as of current, we are still ranging within those two lines. And as I've said many, many times, until one of them breaks, nothing really changes in the macro. But still, when you approach macro resistance, it's probably time to de-risk and then buy back when the breakout occurs, especially in a contentious market position like this. However, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's the end of the world. Again, we are still in a decent position, and we are still actually potentially forming something that I've discussed a few times, a inverted head and shoulders pattern, which would involve Bitcoin going right down to somewhere between 96,000 to 93,000 before coming back upwards. That's very much on the table in my view. Although Bitcoin has seen this big drop and it is seeming to want to go down to the bottom of its range once more, we have to remember, before we jump on the bearish bandwagon, that range is layered with countless indicators. I mean, we can just bring some up. Yeah, a couple of them have broken, but this is really a range full of support. And specifically, we can just delete everything and just look at the volume profile, actually, just to get a good idea of horizontally what's going on there and where the buy orders are. There's a massive stack of buy orders around the $96,000 region, or at least I'm expecting there to be. And where we've fallen in the last few days, right into this crevice in the volume profile at around 100,000 is actually exactly as expected. In the last few videos, I've been saying that's likely to occur, retest for 100,000. So completely unsurprised by this price action. The question is what happens next? Well, the weekly candle close kind of tells us a bit what we need to know about that. We have a very important, this will take a couple of minutes to explain, I'll try my best to do it quickly, a very important weekly candle level on the RSI, which is 62. Now, 62 is the origin of the weekly chart RSI price action, and it may not look like a perfect resistance and support level because there's many perfect retests, actually, if you take a look. I'll just circle a few of them now so you can see them. There's plenty of perfect retests, but some of the retests you can see have kind of overshot or undershot the line itself. That's because the RSI in hindsight actually only shows itself in where the closes took place exactly. It doesn't show where most of the weekly price action on the RSI took place. So a lot of the times where the price seems to have the RSI seems to have overshot or undershot this indicator. It actually has been a whole week through of perfect retests, and then finally after on the last day we've just come up above it. So it's not really that important to focus on exactly how precisely accurate this line has been. It has been perfectly accurate on many occasions within RSI lines that actually don't show to be like that in hindsight, if that makes sense. But this level, and we can just look at the last 18 months, as I did in my last video, the last 18 months of price action kind of paints a picture of how important this RSI level is and the implications it can have on the price chart. Rejection here equals rejection on the price chart, breaking above it equals breakout on the price chart, support retest on the price chart, breaking below it equals correction, breaking above it equals next move, holding it for support, and breaking below it equals the deviation from the current range we've seen, and we got back above it recently. And for the last few weeks, we were holding on to it. Not only holding on to it in a vague sense, but pretty much precisely holding on to it with 2 consecutive doji candles closing right on top of each other. 3 of them actually, 3 consecutive doji candles closing right on top of each other on this support level exactly on the RSI. So that RSI line was basically what was holding Bitcoin up above 100,000. Now that that RSI line is broken with a weekly candle close, it seems reasonable to assume that Bitcoin will continue down here for a period of time. And for that reason, and with the cyclical context being we are in a bull market still, where can we go down to is the big question. And well, being that we are still in a bullish macro context, the only obvious answer to that is we can go downwards to the bottom of this range. We can go downwards to something like 96,000 or even 93,000, but we probably won't be going below that, because going below that will lead to a macro breakdown, which will lead to a bear market, which is inconsistent with the macro bullish context given by the 4-year cycle. That's a big-winded sentence there, but basically what I'm saying is the weekly chart breakdown makes a drop down to this 96 to 93 region quite likely. So I'm not entirely convinced that the bloodshed is over here. It may be paused briefly in the short term, but I would not be surprised at all if Bitcoin does continue down a little lower. Would not shock me in the slightest. You know, I've spoken about it many times now. Bitcoin is looking to top out as per the cycle in around October this year, late October, somewhere around there, give or take a few weeks. And that's not very long away, right? That's only 3 months, 4 months away. Now, at the same time, there's charts like this chart here, which suggests that Bitcoin will be at about $130,000 in October. I've discussed this chart many times. It's an angle-based channel on Bitcoin from peak to peak on the bottoms and on the tops. The angle of ascension kind of halves each time. And if we extrapolate that trend forward around October, the peak of this channel will be at 130,000. There's also other indicators I've looked at to support that $130,000 resistance region. Now, I'm not saying we're going to top there for sure. I'm not sure. I don't think we can be sure about where the price will be. But what I can say is this: the longer we drag out here, the longer this Bitcoin consolidation continues or correction continues, the longer it takes for Bitcoin to break upwards, the closer we get to October, and the less time we will have to go any higher than 130,000, and hence the more 130,000 becomes likely. So in a way, the correction we're seeing now, and if it does extend for, let's say we just, consolidate or correct for another few weeks or a month until we break upwards here on Bitcoin, that wouldn't be bad, and it wouldn't even be unexpected if we are using the term expected to describe what has happened historically, because what has happened historically can be defined within this channel, and this channel says Bitcoin will only top at 130,000. So if anything, Bitcoin not doing much for the next month would actually be perfectly expected as per the cycle, or at least as per the historical trends on the price chart, that is. So I'm not worried at all here. I'm actually quite the opposite. I'm completely calm in this circumstance. This is something that I pretty much expected to happen. I wasn't, 100% convinced or anything like that because I didn't think we had the data to be so. But now that this triangle breakdown has occurred, I'm very, I'm very calm in this situation. It's a scenario I've highlighted many times. So I don't think there's reason to be fearful pretty much on Bitcoin. There is perhaps reason to be a little bit fearful on altcoins. And that's because the Bitcoin bull market has no obligation to drag altcoins up with it. And that's been proven very well in this cycle. The altcoin market has been getting destroyed in relation to what it's done in previous cycles. And this cycle has really highlighted that Bitcoin's 4-year cycle is for Bitcoin. And whatever happens to altcoins is kind of negligible to what happens to Bitcoin in that regard. Every cycle's been different. Previously, we've seen the cycles on Bitcoin be very exponential, very explosive. this has not really been like that this time. This time it's been kind of a step move. And what I mean by that is we've taken a step upwards, we've consolidated for a long time, taken a step upwards, consolidated again. And these big drawn out consolidations have not been conducive to strong altcoin price action. Altcoins perform well when there is hype and greed in the market, and 8-month consolidations are not, again, conducive to hype and greed. So we've just seen altcoins kind of lag behind. And so although I'm quite confident that Bitcoin still is in a good macro position, I still think Bitcoin's pretty safe. I don't necessarily hold that view for altcoins, or at least I'm growing a little bit skeptical in the altcoin market. I'm not quite, at the point which I'm willing to say that altcoins are wrecked. I don't think that. I think that if Bitcoin moved right here, we'd still see some sort of altcoin season, and I'll make a dedicated video on that shortly. But I see Ethereum kind of clinging on to dear life here. It's broken down from a critical pattern. It had a really big opportunity, actually, to really kick off a explosive rally if Bitcoin moved to the upside. Unfortunately, it didn't, and now it's holding on to a very, very critical support zone on the macro scale with its bull market support band. Again, it's still holding on, so it's not like it's failed yet. But yeah, getting in a bit of a precarious position there. And the same thing can be said about the total cryptocurrency market cap. We had a very strong kind of neckline, which we were flipping. We spent 2 months trying to flip that level, and it would have been great to see a bounce there. We were primed for it, but unfortunately we'll drop right through, and now we're testing the 2021 all-time high. Again, it's not the end of the world because we're still above the 2021 all-time high. We're still above a local neckline we had over here. It's not like we're destroyed yet, but getting a little bit concerning, a little bit eyebrow raising. So to conclude, weekly candle close on Bitcoin, pretty rough. Would not surprise me at all if we went downwards a little bit longer here to something like 93 or 96. That would not be surprising at all. Don't necessarily think you should be putting all of your eggs in one basket and just shorting everything. I don't think that, but I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me. Still think Bitcoin macro is in a pretty solid position. Nothing's really changed for the macro on Bitcoin. My long-term outlook's exactly the same. If anything, the $130,000 level becomes a little bit more likely the longer Bitcoin drags on. It's the altcoin market that I'm getting a little bit concerned about. I'm not, in peak concern, panic mode with altcoins or Ethereum, but it's not looking as good as it did a couple of weeks ago, that's for sure. In order for Bitcoin to continue back to the upside, I want to be seeing a break above this red rectangle right here. That is basically our recent high, and so we'd be reversing the short-term downwards trend if we broke above something like 107,000. That's what needs to happen, in my view, for Bitcoin to be back in the clear and start to attack all-time highs again. Until then, I do consider this a correction. And in order to hold on to the bull market, 93,000 is basically the lowest we can go, in my view. So guys, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. In tomorrow's video, I will discuss, given the fact that a lot of bears are emerging out of the woodworks, I will discuss what exactly needs to happen for the 4-year cycle to break, if that's going to occur, right? So that will be the topic of tomorrow's video. And then after that, I'll perhaps make a video on the altcoin market, give the charts a bit more time to play out, and then give you my full opinions on what's going on with altcoins. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. A lot of people ask me what exchange I use as a trader. I use the Bitunix Exchange, and I don't have a contract with them. I haven't signed anything with them. I don't work for them. I advertise them on my own accord. With my referral link down below, you can get a 15% trading fee discount permanently attached to your account, as well as up to 8,000 USDT in rewards just by signing up with my link down below. Why would you sign up? Well, it's global. It's non-KYC. It's never been hacked before. It's got all of the functions and pairs that you would expect for a major exchange. For that reason, I use it. And I implore you to consider using it as well. Sign up with my link to help out the channel, help out yourself. Cheers.